You're listening to Affected by Altitude, a Colorado Rockies podcast for and by Rockies fans on Rocky Mountain Rooftop. Thank you for joining us as we discuss all things baseball and Colorado Rockies. Hello and welcome to Affected by Altitude, the Colorado Rockies podcast on Rocky Mountain Rooftop, proud affiliate of the Fans First Sports Network. I am your host with an actual functioning voice that doesn't sound like a poor man's David Hayter, Evan Lang, and with me always is Skyler Timmons.
Now it's my turn.
Oh, Colonel. Joke's on you. I can do the impression when I'm not sick.
Indeed.
What's a Russian gunship doing in a place like this?
Or I can always do Wolverine from X-Men 97.
Bub.
I need to get my teeth in, because you can tell my voice actor's old.
I am the rocks of the eternal shore crash upon me and be broken. One of the rawest lines from a children's cartoon.
You piece of alien gutter trash.
Yeah. Bub. Well, it is officially the end of the first half of the 2024 Major League Baseball season. The Rockies coming to a finish line with a less than stellar record, but you know what? We're at least made it to the halfway point. We all knew this season was going to be bad. I don't think people realized just how bad it was going to be because it's not been great. I mean, can't help but be honest with you there. It's been a tough season. The Rockies finished the first half of the record of 34-63, a winning percentage of .351. They're 22 games back of their division. They're 16 games back of a wild card spot, and they have a run differential of negative 169, the second worst in the league behind the Chicago White Sox. And hey, credit where it's due. At least we're not the White Sox because, boy, first team to lose 70 games before the All-Star break in MLB history, which
Nice.
is
one record we didn't get.
I'm glad in a year where there's been lots of funny historical records and painful changes to the Rockies. This is a record we didn't break. So, yay.
Also, why don't they evenly split the season? We've played 90-something games. Do they not know how to divide by 2, Evan?
I mean, probably not.
Like, it's what always bugs me. Like, the first half isn't even at the first half.
I do feel like, and I've never looked it up. I haven't looked it up recently, but I do feel like the first half of the season's gotten longer over the last few years.
Well,
I feel like the All-Star
games
break used to be earlier in the year.
Yeah, it was usually beginning of July, and now it's in the middle of July and moved even further back.
Hot as heck.
Mm-hmm.
But coming with the end of the first half, probably the most important thing for the Rockies this year is the 2024 Major League Baseball Rule 4 Amateur Draft. At time of recording, the Rockies, maybe about 10-20 minutes ago, selected with the third overall pick. And Skyler, I don't know about you, I'm really pretty happy with the pick. So the Rockies selected corner infielder, mostly third baseman and outfielder, Charlie Condon out of the University of Georgia with the third overall pick. What are your thoughts?
I think for a lot of people, we'll go back to the thing, and so everyone knows we'll go into a bigger draft recap episode after everything. So we're just going to talk about the first pick here that we had. But there were a lot of options at number 3. You had Guardians at number 1. Rumors are they're probably going to go maybe a little bit more of an underslot pick just so they can have more money throughout the draft. So they have them, and then the Reds are in front of us, and we're not really sure what the Reds were going to do. And pretty much everybody in the mock draft saying, oh, the Rockies are going to take pitching. That's what they do. They need pitching. They're going to take pitching. They'll be fine hitting. But after these last couple seasons went hard with the college pitcher in Gabriel Hughes, then Chase Dollander last year, and a lot of pitching last year in a really deep draft with pitching. Rockies had their pick of the litter after Travis Bazzana goes number 1 to Guardians. And then the surprise one, Evan, I think for a lot of folks was, okay, Reds take Chase Burns, that pitcher out of Wake Forest. Rockies have the pick of the litter now, of offensive guys that they could take in the Jack Caglione, which was one of your guys you were wanting. And then Georgia quarter infielder with Condon, and Rockies chose to go offensive, pick up Condon, which they had a pick of the litter. Like I said, it would have been fine whoever they picked. There was a lot of good options, but I think a lot of us were like, no, they should probably go offense. And I think Condon's a really good pick for him, a good offensive player who is one of the best in the nation this year and has been really good in his career as a player. With how the Rockies offense has gone over these really past several years, to get a guy, they're like, okay, this dude can mash, and he's proven it at the college level. It's a really good pick, and I think I'm pretty happy with it.
Yeah, I am. First of all, I would have been happy with pretty much any of the guys who went top 4, honestly. So you had Travis Bazana out of Oregon State, you had Chase Burns out of Wake Forest, you had Charlie Condon out of Georgia, and one of the expected top 4s was Jack Caglione out of University of Florida. And I would have been happy with legitimately any of these guys. I didn't think Bazana was going to fall to us, and shocker among shockers, he didn't. But it really was a surprise when Chase Burns did not end up falling to us and ended up taken second overall by the Reds. Even the very last mock draft before the draft started pretty much said the Reds are probably going to take Condon and the Rockies are going to take Chase Burns, the pitcher out of Wake Forest, because the Rockies are really pitcher needy. But I am really happy with the Condon pick because he basically immediately becomes the best bat in our entire farm system.
Yeah.
Just after being drafted. And the analysis on MLB Network was that this is a guy where if he does good enough to start in the minors this year, he could see himself on a fast track to big league ball sooner rather than later, you know, in the vein of guys like Wyatt Langford, drafted by the Texas Rangers last year. And that's a really tantalizing prospect. Now, I was really high on Jack Caglione because I really like two-way players, but I only wanted the Rockies to draft him if they would commit to letting him try to be a two-way player. And if they were going to draft him and say, no, you're going to be a pitcher, or no, you're going to be a hitter, you can't do both, I wouldn't have been happy with the pick in the long term.
Well, he's a Kansas City Royal now.
Exactly. But he actually ended up falling out of the top 4, which was surprising to me. But I really, really, really like the Condon pick. He is just 21 years old. He's been excellent with the University of Georgia. He hit 37 home runs with an OPS of 1.565 during the college season this year. That's crazy. And to have this guy who's already got a very well-developed bat, both a power tool and a hit tool, that's going to be big for this farm system, especially as, you know, the Rockies are really trying to reprioritize power in their hitting, which is something that they've sort of had this power drain for over the last couple of years in both the farm system and in the major league system. And we're starting to see that power reemerge in the big league system. But having a guy who we can draft for this is, I think, going to be a big deal. And it's surprising that he, you know, didn't get picked beforehand, because Condon could have very easily gone first overall. Even I think any order of these 4 guys could have gone first overall, but in my opinion, it was either going to be Condon or Bazana, and it ended up being Bazana. And with this is a great pick for the Rockies. He fits in immediate with the organization. As Dan O'Dowd loves to say, he's going to be that aircraft carrier, a term I believe he has used for every position player so far in the draft.
Yeah, I know. if Dan, if everybody's a aircraft carrier, then nobody is. But it was interesting because I think Condon scared off, or could fall down to the Rockies, because the reports, like, if he had gone like that 1 or 2, he was going to try to beat Paul Skeen's signing bonus record. It was about $9.5 million. Was probably what he was shooting for. And so for teams like the Guardians or the Reds wanting to maximize their draft, that'd be a little tough, to eat up that much money to prevent you from maybe signing other players. So, but luckily this works out for the Rockies, who were coveting for him, really wanted him, and now he can slot in. Now, the thing that was funny is in their pregame or in their analysis after the pick, they compared him to a certain current Rocky, one Chris Bryant. Kind of fits the frame and the clips they're showing. He's a big, tall guy. He's what, 6'6", big, tall dude. Looking at his stance in the batter's box, you're like, wait a second, that kind of looks like Chris Bryant. And that's what they all kind of talked about, where he looks like a young, healthy Chris Bryant. And you're thinking, what the heck are we doing? We already have a Chris Bryant. Now we have the young version. We have the Looper version, where he's going to be Joseph Gordon-Levitt, tasked with taking out Bruce Willis, Chris Bryant now. Do you think that's going to happen, Evan? Is that the plot of our Rocky season now?
I mean, it does kind of render the original Chris Bryant redundant. I made this analogy before we started recording. Most people don't keep the old car when they buy the new one.
Mm-hmm.
And
usually you trade in your old phone to get the new one.
And we've been talking about this for a while, but honestly, the Rockies need to pull the Band-Aid off and just end the Chris Bryant experiment, because, he doesn't really fit in this organization right now, because he can't play in the outfield. He can't play first base. And if he does play either of those, he's displacing someone who's having a promising season. Like, if Bryant comes back, I wouldn't want him ever at first base, because Michael Toglia has been having just such a great, rise since getting called back up from AAA. And I would not want Bryant to eat into that playing time. I don't hate the comparison of Charlie Condon to young Chris Bryant, because, I think we all remember how heralded a prospect the original Chris Bryant was. And he was very, very good for his first few seasons. Remember, Rookie of the Year, MVP, helped the Chicago Cubs win a World Series. And honestly, I like Condon as a prospect probably better than Chris Bryant as a prospect, but it's funny that the Rockies like him so much with these comparisons to KB, because you remember that the Rockies originally wanted to draft KB. And, part of the big reason why he came to Colorado, why the Rockies pursued him to free agency, was, making good on the fact that we wanted him but we didn't get a chance to draft him.
Yeah. Maybe it's going to be like a scared straight type of thing, where we're going to bring in the new young attractive version, and it's going to inspire KB to start staying healthy and playing good. Or it's to serve as a warning for Charlie Condon, looking like this is what can happen to you if you're not careful. And then maybe it just ups his game 10%.
Charlie, take care of your back.
Don't let your bones turn to dust in the high altitude.
And it's, what's really funny about Charlie Condon is he can play first, he can play third, and he can play corner outfield. He could potentially even play center field. But with Brett and Doyle having really locked down that position, that's not really a position of need for the Rockies anymore.
Nor is the outfield in general.
I think we would be having much more of a conversation if, Doyle hadn't been having a good season, if he had regressed from last year or was playing about the same. But you and I both know the man's been quite literally on fire since July started, and has been having a really excellent season overall, even before July. So center field's locked down, and corner outfield's not really necessary. And if Toglia's going to lock down first base, then the odd man out's kind of Ryan McMahon, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing, is you got to figure out where you're going to play him. What's your plan? We'll talk about him in a bit, but is Toglia really your long-term answer at first base? Do you like enough of what you're seeing to give him that spot for several years? Or, is what you're going to do with third base? Are you going to move Ryan McMahon, who's a valuable all-star? You're pretty locked out, and they drafted him as an outfielder. That's what the announcement was, announced as an outfielder. So that could be in their mind what they're looking at. Okay, he can play right field for us. He can play left field, one of those corner outfield spots.
But then there's so many other outfielders that you have to make even more decisions. And as we all know, the Rockies aren't good at that.
Yeah, because you got to decide, okay, is Zach Veen going to be anything for us? Is he ever going to learn how to figure out Hartford long-term? Is Benny Montgomery ever going to be healthy enough to play regularly? Or Yanquiel Fernandez, how does he fit into this? Sterling Thompson, where do we put him? Jordan Beck, when's he going to be back? So your outfield's pretty depth. So right now you're wondering, that's the question I think the Rockies have to come out clear on, of what position is Condon going to play? Where do they view him long term for this organization? Is it needs to be at a position that, you know, maybe a little more thin, or they just need some stability at? For me, it's first base. That would be the first. That's the one that needs some some strengthening. But you also, I think it's those corner infield spots. But I'd lean more towards first base because they just need somebody there. But third base, like we're saying, if we can move a Ryan McMahon, boom, that's a perfect slot in. Because we really don't have any other third baseman that I can think of in the system that really wow you. You've got,
like pure defensive third
yeah,
baseman.
You've got a Shunks played there. Julio Carreras has played there.
Ryan Ritter can, like, you've got guys that can play
Utility
there,
guys. Yeah,
but you don't have a
infielders.
true top third base prospect.
Yeah.
And it's tough because, you know, I don't think the Rockies actually want to move on from Ryan McMahon. I think
no, Dick Monfort won't without him.
He's very much the Mr. Rocky now, especially with Chuck leaving at the end of the season, probably going to retire. But then you've still got to make these decisions, and it's going to impact what the Rockies do at the trade deadline, especially if what the analysis is saying is true, and that the Rockies want this guy to be a Wyatt Langford type, an Evan Carter type, a guy that you get through the minors very quickly because he can be an immediate improvement on the big league squad. But if you want him to be an immediate improvement on the big league squad, where are you going to put him?
Mm-hmm.
That's the top question.
Yeah, he's one of those players like a Todd Helton who got fast-tracked up to the big leagues. He started out playing some left field, but then, boom, he's first baseman there for 17 years, Hall of Famer. So you got to, with these, especially a guy like Condon, who's your number 3 overall pick, you move mountains to make sure you have a spot permanent for him. And even with Brendan Rodgers, it was kind of up in the air a little bit, where, we have some shortstops. We have Trevor Story. Maybe we need to move him to second base. And so then they were planning on that. But with Condon, you got to figure out where you're going to put him, because, like they're saying, an impact bat. This is a guy who could be up by the end of April next year.
This is a guy who could make
part of the
camp,
season,
who could break camp with the team.
Yeah.
And you look at his scouting scores. So he's the number 2 overall prospect in the top 250 for draft prospects coming into today. Hit score 60, power score 70, run 40, fine, we got plenty of fast guys. Arm 55, field 50, overall value 65. And this is a guy who's made a ton of noise and came really out of nowhere, because what's important to recognize, he was a walk-on at Georgia. He didn't get scholarship offers for baseball. He was about to go play D3 football somewhere. Walked on at Georgia, immediate difference maker, really has been just this incredible guy. And now you've got to figure out what to do with him. Yeah. Because his first season at Georgia in 2023, he was great. Like, truly great. OPS of 1.284, 25 home runs, 10 doubles, a triple. And then he comes back for 2024 and does even better. Mm-hmm. Like, there is a reason why he was that number 2 overall prospect. And there is a reason he slots in comfortably, I think, at the number 1 or number 2 organizational prospect for the Rockies, and potentially even a top 100 prospect for the Rockies in Major League Baseball. So you've got to figure it out. Don't screw around with this.
Yeah. You know, the goal is to reconstruct, make the team better. Condon makes the team better, the organization better. And him and like Dollander, those are like 2 guys I would love to see on the team next year as they start to go through this transition of getting better. And, overall, really good pick. Happy with it.
Fantastic pick. And like I said, I would have been happy with pretty much any of those 4 guys we talked about. But Condon at number 3 overall is, any Rockies fan should be very happy with this pick. Like, I know a lot of people are always going, we need to get pitchers, but we need bats too. You can't only draft pitchers like the Angels did a couple of years ago, where they just took 20 pitchers.
Or the way the Rockies pretty much almost did that last year.
Because here's the thing. The Rockies actually have some pretty promising pitching depth in the minors right now.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about this a little bit more in the second half, but I'm comfortable with not taking a pitcher in the first round and going with an impact bat because of that. And I think the
Yeah.
Rockies are too.
Yeah, and that's where I was, where, yeah, leading up to the draft, I was like, "Yeah, probably need to take pitching, that's what we need." But then I started thinking, "But with the pitching in the system is better than people realize, or it's in a better spot than it's been in a long time." Where across no, aside from AAA, which is still a wasteland, for Albuquerque with just filling it out with good prospects, there's still some arms there, but down in Double A down, there's a lot of good arms. There's good arms coming back in Gabriel Hughes, Jordy Vargas, a couple of those guys that underwent Tommy John. Now you're getting guys like Germán back and Senzatella. So there's pitching where they're in a lot better spot. They traded for a bunch. They've drafted a bunch, but they needed offense too. And Jordan Beck, a college bat, they've had some of those high school bats. We're still waiting on those to really formulate. But college bats are a lot more big league ready than perhaps they've ever been. And so Condon, it represents that opportunity of a guy who can streamline up to the big leagues. He could start, I bet, down in Spokane right now and tear it up. And so he's a guy that feels the need and can get to the big leagues quickly and be impactful with his bat, which is what you need.
Exactly. And we'll talk a little bit more about pitching here in the second half, but I think that's going to about do it for the first round pick for the Rockies. We're going to have a full draft recap episode coming out probably Thursday of this week, where we're going to go over all the Rockies picks, all 20 of them, or 20 plus rather.
And the thing with the
And
whole,
we'll talk about all the guys. So hang tight, don't go anywhere, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude. I'm Evan, and this is our aircraft carrier, Skyler. And at the end of the first section, we were sort of talking about the organizational pitching depth and how, with how the how the pitching is starting to shape up in the minors for the Rockies, that they can be comfortable and fans can be comfortable taking an impact bat instead. And we mentioned a lot of names, but we've got guys like Carson Palmquist, who unfortunately injured but is having a heck of a season in Double-A. Gabriel Hughes, Jordy Vargas, Jackson Cox all coming back. In High A, you've got Sean Sullivan and Chase Dollander. In Low A, you've got Jack Mahoney and Jace Kaminska. You've got all of these pitchers that are really impressing and make you feel a little bit more better about the depth. But the main guy that we want to talk about to start this segment is Mr. Chase Dollander, our first round pick from last year, who's just having a really strong season with Low A Spokane and was our designated player for the Futures game this weekend.
mm-hmm. Exciting stuff. I think we're all really happy with Chase and glad it worked out where he could fall down to the Rockies at number 9 last year because he needed some things to work on. And the Rockies have worked on with him. And a lot of the reports you can see is he's back to where he was when he was projected to go 1 of 1 in 2022, or could have been in 2022 or something like that. And so it's cool to see him having developed, and the dude is just dominant. And you look, he's kind of like when you look at a Paul Skeens game, Paul Skeens is striking out everybody. That's what old Dollander's been doing over in Spokane in High A, just mowing dudes down. 5 innings and he's striking out 10 guys, just mowing them down. Has a great ERA, doesn't walk a lot of guys, just pounds the zone, racks up the punch outs. Ooh, it's fun to see.
Yeah, Dollander's 111 strikeouts to end the first half of the minor league season is not just the highest strikeout total in the Northwest League where the Spokane Indians play. It's like a top 10 number in all of minor league baseball right now.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, he's got a 2.83 ERA in 14 starts and 70 innings. His whip is fine at 1.26, only 28 walks. He's got some minor command issues from time to time, but for the most part, he's just buzzing people with his really good fastball with a solid arsenal of breaking pitches. And it was really cool to see him in the Futures game this weekend. He he wasn't his sharpest, admittedly, in the futures game, but he made it through a solid inning. Didn't allow any runs to score. He did give up one walk and one hit, but that was it. None of those runners scored. And it was nice to see Chase sort of on this national stage, national platform, because Rockies pitching prospects really don't get a lot of hype in sort of the big league buzz. Chase is I believe he's in the top 100 for prospects right now per MLB Pipeline. But when you talk about Rockies prospects, I feel like he's not really the guy who gets talked about in the national media. He fell to the Rockies at 9 last year after he had a little bit of a regression season in his final year at University of Tennessee, where the season previous, it was like this guy could be 1-1 potentially. And, the Rockies worked with him to get him back to more where he was at the end of that 2022 Tennessee season instead of 2023, where he was still pretty good then, just not 1-1 or 1-2 material. And so, Chase is really exciting to me. And, even more exciting is that after the All-Star break, he's headed to Hartford.
Yeah. And hopefully he can dominate there and finish the year in Albuquerque, which, like we were saying, get him on that fast track. He's doing really good. And it's important now because he's considered the Rockies' #1 prospect per Pipeline. He overtook Amador, I believe, on that Pipeline, just because Amador's kind of taken a step back this year down there in AA. But Dollander's came in at #2, and now I think he's overtaken up to #1, and has just been dominant all year. And it's nice to see that, where I think it reminds people of kind of John Gray a little bit. I'd say he's definitely better than John Gray was. And I get feelings of like watching him. He's kind of like Ubaldo, where he's got this blazing fastball and then a biting secondary pitch with that slider. He's doing a lot of things right. And so it was cool that he got the recognition to not only go represent at the Futures game, that he got to start it. It was only 1 inning, but the fact that he got to start it and was chosen to start that is really cool. Who would have thought that a Rockies pitcher would start the Futures game? A Rockies prospect, but he didn't. It was cool.
Yeah, and who would have thought, a Rockies prospect, who was even the last Rocky to be in the Futures game for pitching? I think it was Ben Bowden back in
I think that's
2018 or something. And
what happened to him?
Didn't exactly have a great time there. And Ben Bowden's no longer with the team. I think he's with the Braves, AAA minor league affiliate, but he hasn't touched the bigs in several years. But for Dollander, he's moved up and he's now our #1 overall prospect, and it's well deserved. And we had him placed, I think, #2 for our preseason Perps rankings over at purplerow.com. He's going to be #1 for our midseason. I guarantee you. I will be shocked if he's not. Yeah. And a lot of people are saying that he's probably going to be up next year, but it's funny because you look at MLB Pipeline for the Rockies and they have him projected as being here 2026 is when his MLB ETA is. But there is a non-zero chance that he is with the Rockies big league squad at some point this season. It's not a high chance, but it's a non-zero chance. And that is how impressive he's been. And then you've got other guys like Sean Sullivan, been very impressive. Carson Palmquist, been very impressive. And it makes you think maybe the Rockies rotation could be back to where it was in 2017, 2018, where the rotation was what was winning us ball games. And the bats could be good on occasion, but figuring out pitching at altitude, having that set rotation where 5 out of 5 guys are going to get the job done 9 times out of 10. That's a really exciting prospect.
Yeah. And that, like we were saying with Condon, that then may have to force them to make some decisions with their already pricey rotation they have with Kyle Freeland and Antonio Senzatella, who everybody's signed through about 2026, roughly. For the most part, Germán's through 2025, but I'm sure he'll get another extension. There's arms on the way. Dollander's leading the charge, which is nice to see. It's nice to feel like there's an ace. Just a country hardball ace coming up through the system. Exciting to see.
Yeah, and a guy who really doesn't have a negative value pitch in his arsenal. He's got his fastball is his primary. It's 65 grade. His slider's graded at 60, but then both his curveball and his changeup are graded at 50 or higher per MLB pipeline. So he doesn't really have like a negative pitch that's bringing down his value. Just things he can continue to work on and sort of perfect his art. And we were originally going to talk about this in the third section, but I think we might as well bring it up now because we're talking about this. This makes the Rockies need to make some decisions, and a lot of these decisions are going to come for our trade deadline, which is just a couple weeks away. And I think having this much solid pitching has made them reevaluate who they might be holding on to, because we found out that the Rockies are listening to calls and will make available on the trade market both Austin Gomber and Cal Quantrill.
And who's that? Bob Nightingale saying that?
So, grain of salt, but
yeah. Who also said if Charlie Condon hit 37 homers at Georgia, can you imagine how he'll smash at 7,200 feet? Except Denver's at 5,280. So
no, he's going to come up and play by you.
Oh yeah, he's going to come play in Alamosa. Sick. We've traded him to Mexico City.
It's where the new Rockies minor league affiliate's going to be. Hey, it's where they're going to move the Modesto Nuts. They're going to move the Modesto Nuts to Alamosa.
No, they can go to Pueblo.
Yeah, I don't want to drive all the way to Pueblo either.
You wouldn't want to come down to Alamosa.
Just give me back the Sky Sox, okay?
Hey, they're there every Sunday home game.
Yeah, and that's cool, but I want the real Sky Sox.
That's the same organization.
We knew that the Rockies were probably going to trade one of either Gomber or Quantrill. And the question is now with all of these pitching reinforcements potentially coming, and Germán is back ahead of schedule. Antonio Senzatela is actually running a little bit ahead of schedule as well, because it's important to note they thought Germán would be back probably at some point after the All-Star break, maybe in August. And the original projection for Senzi was he wouldn't be back this year at all. Mm-hmm. And now they think Germán's back already. Now they think Senzi maybe beginning of September will be back. So you've got these two pitchers, both who I think are going to have some value to bring on the trade market. Quantrill more than Gomber, in my opinion. But you got to make that decision now, because we know that they will bring us some value. But then also we know the Rockies are planning on trading Elias Diaz, because it came out earlier this week that they had declined to talk extension with him, which is a good sign, honestly. I love Elias Diaz. I've really fallen in love with him as a Rocky since he joined us. But this is the right move, you don't want to extend him. You want to trade him and recoup on value, because Drew Romo and Willie McIver are both pounding on the door down at AAA to get into the bigs. You've got Hunter Goodman who can play catcher, and it's time, unfortunately. And you can send Diaz to a team that's contending and wish him the very best. And it's setting up where if the Rockies play their cards right, they can have a really productive trade deadline.
Mm-hmm. And the big thing for them is we know when they're hesitant to trade because they value their guys better. Oh, we didn't get the offer that we hoped for. At this point, they can't be picky. You get what you can. You can try. What about throwing in this guy? Okay, well, we'll go with this. But if they can get a controllable reliever would be good. Some mid-tier prospects, whatever they can get for some of these guys, because it's twofold. One, to restock what you can, get what you can for these guys, but mostly it's to something that Bud Black alluded to, is the commitment to a youth movement in the second half, where we got to start seeing what we've got, who's going to be here to help us build this team back into contention. Okay, Tanner Gordon, you're getting a couple of looks here, and that's good. He's got some issues still, but we saw some promise there. That's what the point of the second half will be, and a big part of that is trading guys to make room so you can do that. And in that rotation, Gomber and Quantrill, they have a year of control left, but that's still valuable to other teams. That makes them more valuable because a team can still get a full year out of a guy. Oh, and if they don't like what they see after they trade for him, boom, he's a free agent. Rockies can come crawling back if they want. But you got to see what you have in opening space by moving these guys is prudent. You have an obligation to do that. Don't throw out extensions you don't need to. Don't pull a Daniel Bard because that extension did not work out.
It's a shame because I will say that Bard extension could have worked out. It definitely could have. But it was still a tremendous overpay for a much older pitcher. And I would argue, as much as I love both Kyle Freeland and Antonio Senzatela, neither of those extensions have particularly worked out at this point. Nope. And I know you want to pay your guys, your homegrown pitchers who've been immensely loyal to this team and worked their butts off to get to where they're at. And I'm not saying they didn't deserve it. I'm just saying that in the rear view, those extensions are probably handled a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And it's the same for, even Ryan McMahon.
Yeah. It's you paid them too much at the time of the extension where nothing they had done really garnered an extension of that caliber. Ryan McMahon kind of been a pretty middling average player. Yeah, he could hit 20 home runs and play some good defense, but really nothing you couldn't replace if you didn't extend him. And same with Freeland and Senzatela, where, they had their moments. They pitched okay, but it was nothing where, like, we have to keep them here. It was like, they're fine, but we don't have to keep them. They're pretty average. Yeah. And so you can't run into that same mistake with, we got to extend Quantrill or we got to keep Gomber because they're having good years. They had a good month thing where both of them have still been kind of average. Maybe slightly above average, but still at the end of the day, they regress back to pretty average pitchers.
Yeah.
And those are a dime a dozen, homie.
Exactly. And I think I love Austin Gomber, the person, but he is right now, and it's okay. Like, it's fine to be an average pitcher. But like you said, we can get more average pitchers just through the draft, just through our own development. And the big standout for me for these extensions, and I say this with all the love in my heart for Antonio Senzatela, one of my favorite guys on the team, tremendously nice, extremely hard working, is that his extension didn't really make that much sense at the time anyway.
No.
You're looking at a pitcher who's exclusively thrown mid-4s to 5s in the ERA, who gives up a lot of contact and doesn't really strike out guys. Now, the plus is that he excels at getting ground ball outs and he doesn't walk guys. Great. But for how much you're paying him and for how long you're paying him for, especially now with the injuries he's had to deal with, the torn ACL and then getting Tommy John surgery, it's another extension that didn't really work out for the Rockies. And you want to be really careful because I like Cal Quantrill a lot. But right now, with how things are going, and I've said I'd be okay with us keeping Quantrill with extending him, but you've got to be real careful about how you go about that if you're going to do it. Yeah. And it's the same for a lot of other guys who you just got to decide if you want to keep them around. Jacob Stallings has an option for next year that would keep him in Colorado, but how often are those options exercised?
Yeah, mutual options usually it's pretty rare that both sides of the mutual option get exercised. I feel like it would in this case because I don't think many people are going to be scrambling to sign Jacob Stallings at his age and his history of production to a long-term deal after this season. So there's possibility there. Now the Rockies could still reject it, which, it's still their prerogative, but not often. So you got guys that probably are going to stick around here. They're getting old. And we've got the youth coming. Got to cycle these guys out. Put them out to pasture. Ship them in a box down the river, Grandma.
And it's hard because we, at the end of the day, these are people and these are their livelihoods. But it's a business. Baseball is a business, and I think a lot of players understand that. And right now, Bill Schmidt and the Rockies front office need to be getting everything that they can for aging and expiring contract players. Because the team's got to get younger. You've got to continue committing to the youth movement. And they've done a good job in places with this. Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, they've given Nolan Jones more than his fair shake. And unfortunately, this year, he's really having a hard time. Adele Amador got his cup of coffee. And while he was up here, he played basically every day. that's good. I like seeing that. Jordan Beck was getting plenty of playing time as well. And now you're seeing, guys like Michael Toglia earn more and more regular playing time, and you've got to start making decisions.
Mm-hmm. And in a game that's getting younger and younger as well, because a lot of these guys are in their, a lot of the stars of today, a lot of them are in those mid-20s, or mid to early 20s. And if you're getting to 28, 29, you're old in the Major League Baseball world nowadays. Unless you're one of those rare guys that's signing a 14-year deal that'll keep you through your age 40 season. No, the game's getting younger, and you can't really afford to hold on to your veterans for long. If you can ship them out, you do it, especially when you're a losing team that has no need for a veteran everyday player who's just kind of playing out for a contract. Got to cycle through, get some fresh blood in there, and figure out your vision and journey forward as a team.
What's really a good example of this is looking more and more like a better decision as time goes on, is letting DJ LeMahieu walk. And I say this as a guy who loved DJ LeMahieu and was mad about letting him walk at the time. But imagine if we had signed him to that long-term deal, where right now DJ is 36 and it's looking like he's coming to the end of the road here. He's very much struggled the last some seasons with production and with injuries. He looks old. And I'm, at the end of the day, it was maybe the right move to not sign him long term and get younger. And yes, they bungled a lot of the steps along the way for this.
Arguably, they got older because they signed Daniel Murphy.
Yes, that was dumb. That was very dumb. But now we've got a plethora of really interesting and young middle infield prospects that can, take that position, and we're not burdened by a massive contract at second base or at shortstop. And that's what brings up maybe dealing Brendan Rodgers, who we're going to have to make a decision on at some point, because eventually he's going to run out of team control. But at the end of the day, you got to make those choices.
Yeah. And I will say it was bad to not sign DJ, because that basically started the closing of our contention window. Started breaking up that core. So you could have re-signed him for like 3, maybe 4 years instead of the 2 years, and then the 6-year deal that the Yankees gave him. So give him like
think
3
about
years.
How the Rockies have done their extensions over the last few years, like we were just talking about.
Yeah. And then they could have traded Rodgers for JT Realmuto, and then gotten a real first baseman, or just letting Ryan McMahon play first base. But I'm not saying, like the Yankees, and make DJ play first base.
I'm not saying that the way that the Rockies handled DJ LeMahieu was good or even decent. It just ended up working out okay.
Yeah, it's been okay. Has it been great? No, because it's been a mess ever since.
But so much of that has been after letting him walk. They just did a bunch of really dumb stuff.
And Brendan Rodgers has glass bones.
Yeah, like if you had let DJ walk and then not signed Daniel Murphy, either promoted a guy from AAA or just gave it to Rodgers straight away, and Rodgers had stayed healthy, then we're having a completely different conversation right now.
Could have signed a Jose Iglesias type to play second base like they did for Tovar.
You could have had Jose Iglesias play second base.
Yeah. And then he could have become a pop star. So, no, that would have stopped his pop star career. He would have been like a country singer. Jose Iglesias, if you hear this,
get me Jose Iglesias on the phone. I have a business opportunity.
Give me his non-union American counterpart.
Joe Church.
Yeah, there you go. There's a country star right there.
My name's Joe Church, and this here's my song about baseball and pick 'em up trucks. Not to be confused with my ska counterpart who sings about pick it up trucks.
Mm-hmm. So stupid.
That's a great place to end the second part. So don't go anywhere, and we'll wrap things up in the third right after this. Ska will never die, Skyler.
It never will.
It never will. It never has. It never will. Wallet chains will continue to be trendy, as are checkered pants.
Those are the weird ska fans.
I have to go. Welcome back to Affected by Altitude with Evan and Skyler. We've talked about a lot of things here. We might as well dive into the next part, which is how about that big Mongoose?
He won't stop hitting home runs. Oops, all home runs.
Like, legitimately, almost all of his hits, something like
half
a
of
little
his
under
hits.
half of his hits have been home runs. Michael Toglia, first baseman for the Colorado Rockies, since being called up in beginning of June, has been excellent. And it's not all perfect. Still plenty of strikeouts in that bat. His on-base percentage is not good, and his batting average is not good. But then he makes up for it like a 503 slugging, which brings his OPS all the way up to .763, which is still one of the better marks on the team, surprisingly.
Yeah. He's got an isolated power measure of like 2 something that would be a top 5 if he qualified in Major League Baseball.
It's ridiculous. It's legitimately, the tear that he's been on has been a lot of fun. And then he ended this series against the Mets with a 3 home run game. Mm-hmm. And you combine this with his excellent defense, that'll play. Like, it's tough because he truly is one of those 3 true outcomes players, except even more so, maybe even a 2 true outcome player. He's getting his walk rate up, and he's striking out a little bit less, but he's either a home run or he's an out. And, so he's got 34 hits, 16 of which are home runs. So 47% of all of his hits in the big leagues this year are homers.
Mm-hmm. He has more triples than doubles.
Yeah. He has 1 double, 2 triples, 34 RBI. He's hitting 197, 260, 503. But if he can keep getting that walk rate up, keep getting that on-base percentage to climb, and it is getting better. It's still not great, but it's getting better. You might have yourself a big league first baseman right there.
Yeah, Toglia he's a tough one to really crack and figure out what you have on him, because he's a lot more comparable to really Joey Gallo, who's the poster child for 3 true outcomes type of player, where he goes big or goes home. And Joey Gallo had a good stretch of years hitting a ton of home runs. Average has never been that good. He's always struggling to get over the 200 line. Always struck out a ton, but he drew a ton of walks. But Joey Gallo's kind of fizzled out ever since that trade to the New York. He just has plummeted to where he's a pretty forgettable player in big leagues now. You think back at Chris Davis with the Orioles. A lot of these guys, they fall off the map. And so it's tough, where as much as we like, yeah, probably could be that through true outcomes. As long as he's hitting home runs, who cares? But I think we both know this isn't, I don't think this is sustainable the way that he's going. And part for Toglia, and for the Rockies, it's figuring out how can he get more consistent with his contact to where it doesn't always have to be go big or go home, but it's improving his walk rate. I think especially cut down on those swing and misses. There's ways you can work around it, to like Kyle Schwarber has. You look at Kyle Schwarber, yeah, he strikes out, but man, can that dude draw walks. He's patient at the plate. He can draw his walks, and then when he connects, that sucker flies. And so that's what Toglia could maybe try to do. I think there's blueprints for what Toglia could do to become a more consistent and really fit, like what you're saying, a big league first baseman for the future. There's things there he can do, and I think he's entirely capable of doing it. I think he's a 240 hitter.
He's another one of those guys where, very much like Brett and Doyle, we were saying, if he can just be like kind of league average when it comes to some of these hitting stats, we're in business.
Uh-huh.
And you know what? I do think he's getting there, because you look at his stats for July so far, he is not leading the team in strikeouts. Ezekiel Tovar is with 7 more strikeouts. Totally has 13 Ks. Tovar has 20, and then you've got Brendan Rodgers with 13. and Brenton Doyle with 10. But that's another thing. We had the same conversation with Brenton Doyle. You need to cut down on the strikeouts. You need to get that walk rate up. And he's done it. And we're seeing Toglia kind of do it. There's still a way to go. But who leads the team in walks for July so far? It's July 14th. So we're halfway through the month of July, hitting the All-Star break. It's Brenton Doyle with excuse me. It's Brenton Doyle with 8 walks, and right behind him is Toglia with 7.
Mm-hmm.
The blueprint, like you said, is there. And as long as he can keep working on it, just like Brenton Doyle, he's giving himself more and more reason to be out there every day. He started basically every game in July.
Yeah.
And, it's the same with Brenton Doyle. You've got to be good enough that they keep you in there, but then doing that and getting consistent playing time builds your confidence. After today's game, his 3 home run game, Toglia talked about how getting to play every day has helped him become more confident at the plate. And that confidence comes with not swinging at literally everything, just trying to get on base to prove that you belong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's still working on making adjustments, and I think that's what they're working on. Is he's always going to be a power guy, true power guy, but it's learning how to control that power still, where you can deploy it in other ways. And he's done that better since coming back. Looks much better approach-wise, both sides of the plate, righty and lefty. Looks comfortable, taking much better at bats. He's making more consistent contact, hitting the ball hard. Now it's how can he figure out where he can become more of a pure hitter instead of just a slugger, but add in more of a hitting element where he can throw out some singles, throw out more doubles. He can power to the gap when he needs to. Yeah, we'll always take a home run, and I don't think we ever need to take that away from him. But it's refining that approach even more, where it doesn't always have to be go big or go home. Where he's got 2 strikes, and we really just need a base hit here to drive in a guy at third. Can Toglia do that? Can he place it down the line for a double? So adding in, making him, I think, a little bit more well-balanced hitter, where power is still number 1. Until you got 2 strikes sometimes, just pick and choose and make sure he's making good contact.
Yeah, and the thing is, we actually know that Toglia has that in him from his minor league time.
Mm-hmm.
Like down in Albuquerque, down in Hartford, basically every level of the minors that he's played in, he's been able to do that. He's been able to lay down the singles and hit some doubles and drive in runs and be a much better situational batter, draw a decent number of walks. And that's what he just needs to be able to apply to his big league approach. So that's what I'm saying. It's like he's got now, after a month and a half, such a promising foundation. And if he can continue to build on that, he's going to make the Rockies have to think about maybe this kid's our first baseman for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the glove has always been there. The glove and the power have always been there throughout his career, college, all that good stuff. And he plays some dang good defense. Makes picks, makes the infield better, making all kinds of picks. He's a big dude, so it gives you a nice big target at first base. You can leap up, snag a errant ball. He makes your team better defensively when you got him over there. And so it's just, can that bat pick up just a little bit more? I'm not saying he needs to be a 300 hitter, much as we'd love that.
Like 240.
Yeah, he's usually been like a 220 to 240, which I'm okay with that with Toglia if he's blasting his home runs like he is now consistently. Because Kyle Schwarber, he's throwing out like 30 home runs a year. I'll take that. And I've said this before, a guy like Toglia is really a lot more valuable when the rest of your offense is hitting and getting on base, because it makes his home runs that much more valuable. Because him hitting a solo home run and then going, with going 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, because where were those strikeouts coming? But if there's guys on base when he hits his home runs, okay, I'll take that 220 average.
I mean, that's what makes drawing the walk so important.
Yeah.
Is, all right, you got 2 runners on and Michael Toglia is at the plate. And if you don't throw him strikes, he's gonna draw a walk.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, you've got to put a ball in the strike zone, and then he punishes it.
Yeah, and that's
That's
what
the kind of
Schwarber
hitter
does.
that we want for Togi, for Big Mongoose, which is such a better nickname than Big Mike. Like, I think I would hate Big Mike less if it wasn't like, look, I love Drew and Huey, but they basically exclusively call him Big Mike now, and it's
Mm-hmm.
driving me insane.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Big Mike. Well,
Stop it.
Big Mike likes hitting home runs because Big Mike's got to eat.
Oh, what a play from Big Mike. And we're going to talk to Big Mike after the game. But right now, Big Mike's got to go to the bathroom.
Stay tuned from this word from Jersey Mike's, and we'll be back with Big Mike. Big Mike,
But
Jersey Mike's.
there's a branding deal for you, Rockies. Figure it out. But yeah, Toglia, if he can continue, because Toglia has actually had throughout his entire minor league career a pretty healthy on-base percentage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. If he can get that on-base percentage over 300, and he can get that batting average over 200, we're in business.
You got yourself a stew going.
That is a, yeah, you got yourself a nice hearty first baseman stew going right there.
Rest in peace, Carl Weathers. Baby, you got a stew going.
Man, it's been a tough week for celebrity deaths too. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But seriously, Toglia doing a great job on top of Bretton Doyle, who's been doing a fantastic job, absolutely on fire for the month of July. But the last guy we're going to talk about here, we've alluded to him several times in this podcast, Germán Márquez.
Germán Márquez.
Yeah, Germán Márquez is finally back after 445 days at time of recording. Recovered from Tommy John, making his first big league start. And you know what? It wasn't perfect, but the flashes of who Germán is as a pitcher showed, especially in the first 3 innings. Fastball was great. That knuckle curve was nasty. And the big thing that he did today was become the Rockies' all-time franchise leader in strikeouts.
Hooray!
And it's just, I'm so happy to have him back. Germán is one of my favorite Rockies players. He's one of my favorite Rockies pitchers of all time. And, it was tough on him to not be able to be out there and pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And to have him, take the mound this afternoon was a really big deal, I think. And to have him show flashes of what made him so excellent. There's clearly rust there, especially, he sort of hit a wall in the 4th inning, started issuing walks, started giving up hits, gave up a home run. But you've got to keep in mind, this is a guy who has not pitched a big league outing since April of 2023.
Yeah. And it turns out big leaguers are more prone to draw walks than minor leaguers. They're not going to, once they see you maybe a second time through the lineup, they're going to be a little more patient. So, yeah, 4 walks on the day in 4 innings, 3 runs, 5 hits, but 3 strikeouts. I think those 3 strikeouts were 3 in a row to get the record.
Yeah,
and then the 1 home run.
It was the last 2 batters of the first inning and then the first batter of the second inning to set that record.
Yeah, so it not the cleanest outing, and you definitely would have hoped it to be better. But still, just the fact that he's out there and there were moments where you saw things were looking good. Knuckle curve was nasty. Setting things up. His first start, and we temper our expectations as he continues to get lengthened out and reaccustomed to pitching at the big league level. But it's just good to see him back out there, have that leader on the mound, leader in the clubhouse. I'm sure a lot of those guys were happy to see him out there again. See their buddy out there.
I was happy to see him out there. It was just, it was really nice. And, it definitely is. You got to have the tempered expectations. He threw, 70 pitches today, which is about what I expected. 4 innings. That's fine, especially because the offense backed him up. And, he ended up with the no decision for him, but he didn't walk away with a loss, which I think is a big deal because the Rockies offense backed him up today. And that's more of what I want to see. No more of this Dakota Hudson, 3 runs of support in 28 innings or whatever, or what tends to happen to Kyle Freeland, very little run support. You got to back up your guy. And for a guy like Germán, who is so important to this clubhouse. It's very clear how much this organization and his teammates love him. That, I am more than content with how things played out today. You got to give him time to get back into the groove of things, and he's shown that he's got the capability to do that. But you got to still work on stretching him out and getting him there, getting him back used to. You're not facing AA guys; they're not going to strike out 9 times in 3 innings. It's just not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's just getting a feel for his pitches again, all of his pitches, getting them working, and just ramping up and getting stronger and getting back to where he was, back before all these injuries and struggles started to really eat at him and everything. Because this guy was just a couple years removed from an All-Star appearance, and so it's just good to have him back. And we'll see what happens with him the rest of the year. But good to have the Kaiser back in action.
Germán Márquez.
Germán Márquez. I think that's Germán Márquez.
Germán Márquez.
Joe Church.
Kile Frieland. I have considered doing that, of just like going out of my way on an episode of this to say everyone's names as wrong as possible, just to see if I can make people mad.
Charlie Blockman.
Sheen Bouchard.
Oh no, I hate that. That one's awful.
You don't like Sheen Bouchard?
No, that's terrible.
Oh, come on. But Sheen Bouchard loves you.
No.
It's Mikhail Toglia.
Big Mike?
Big Mike. It's Big Mongoose. I like it a lot more. It's more fun. It's more unique. Big Mike is lazy. It's fine to use every now and then. But come on. In a team where you've got guys with more fun, you got Chuck Nasty. You got to be a little bit more creative with the nicknames. That's something that's bothered me about the Rockies, is that they're so lazy with their nicknames. Oh, it's Hampy. Oh, it's B-Rod. It's Ellie. It's Tovey.
Jonesy.
Beaksy.
Obi.
Obi I don't mind, actually.
K-Free.
But come on.
Gombi.
Exactly. Gombi. Come on.
Quantrilli.
Have more fun with nicknames. Nicknames are fun.
Cal Quan Chi. And then we got a Mortal Kombat crossover.
Mortal Kombat. He tests his might every 5th game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's going to do it here for us on Affected by Altitude. Thank you for sticking with us through the first half of the 2024 season. It's been a ride. We're looking forward. We're interested to see how the second half goes in the next couple of days. Like I said earlier, we're going to have a draft recap episode going up later this week. So definitely keep an eye out for that. I'm really looking forward to talking about who all the Rockies selected during the draft. Skyler, where can the folks find you at?
Find me over on Twitter at silent_crowd, and writing for purplerow.com on Wednesdays, and writing for Fans First Sports Network.com.
And you can find me every Monday on purplerow.com, writing the Monday Rock Pile and the weekly Pebble Report. You can also find me on Twitter at Evan_Lang27. I would love to hear from you. And you can find Rocky Mountain Rooftop on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Rocky Mountain Rooftop. That's at ROCKYMTN Rooftop. That's going to do it here for us on yet another episode of Affected by Altitude. Skyler, hit him with it.
Gunnar Henderson's going to win the home run derby.
Gunnar Henderson might be the MVP in the American League. He has been insane this year.
It's true. Anyways.
Gunnar Henderson.
Gunnar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played the baseballs. A farewell.
Farewell, everyone.
Find me milking my cows in my tulip field.
Do you know that in Scandinavia, in Iceland specifically, they have these like specific kind of very stout, muscular horses?
Good for them.
Yeah. Yeah.